Hey everybody, it's Glenn back in this video as you've seen me review one by one each of the action figures from the Space Venom Build-A-Figure waves, so now it's time to turn our attention towards the BAF itself. But before I do that, as requested, I'm going to rank each of the action figures in the wave ascending, starting with the bottom of the heap, which is where I place Hobgoblin. Yet, even so, I will say I still like him. It's just while I give the effort an A, the execution falls a little short from being able to say this is the perfect representation of the character. Then the first of our two Ultimate Spider-Men, it's Miles Morales, a great addition to Marvel Legends as I know he has quite the fan base, yet to me Peter Parker casts a long shadow, and while intellectually I appreciate the diversity Miles represents, but emotionally he doesn't quite hit the spot for me in the way Peter Parker does. Then Spider-Girl, who saddled with being the most obscure character of the wave, will likely be dismissed at the bottom of many people's rankings, yet just another Spider-Girl to them will always be Spider-Bitch, to me a unique and empowered attitude I find hard to deny. Bringing us to Electro, admittedly a so-so middling villain in Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery, the kind often used to fill out Legends waves, but here given a surprising level of attention that's got me liking the character a whole lot more. Then in second place, coincidentally, it's the second of our Ultimate Spider-Men, it's Peter Parker, a great representation of him as a teen from the Ultimate Comics and a great head sculpt with a smile that frankly I find infectious. Meaning I'm awarding the gold medal to Silk, and had you told me I'd be saying that prior to getting her on my review station, I'd have never believed you. Marvel Legends have always struggled with the women, we've frankly over the years suffered some real Franken hookers, making Silk standing atop them all as the most beautiful of Lady Legends really quite the achievement, setting a new standard by which all future efforts will be judged. So that's how I'm ranking them. Contentious maybe? You let me know by ranking them in the comments below. And now with that business taken care of, it's now time for us to focus on the latest form of Venom's evolution. So yeah, Space Venom, or if you want to be more formal, Venom Space Knight, as per the title of his current comic. And I've had a number of questions along the lines of, who is Space Venom? How did Space Venom come about? Well, it's best I answer that through revealing the history of the character told in action figures. And it's also a convenient way for me to compare the BAF to a number of previous versions of Venom. Kicking it off with 2008's Target exclusive Marvel Legends Red Hulk BAF Wave symbiote costume Spider-Man. Before there was Venom, Peter Parker acquired a new costume via what he believed to be fancy alien technology during the original Secret Wars. Turns out said alien technology was instead a containment unit for an amorphous alien form striving to form symbiosis with its new host. Parker freaked out in the way you do when you realise you're actually covered in alien slime. We've all had a wild night like that, right? Ultimately, Parker rejected the symbiote. Spurned by Spider-Man, the alien sloped off and its gooey liquid-like form enveloped Eddie Brock, the symbiote having sensed Brock's hatred for Spider-Man and the two becoming the villain Venom. Seen here in the Marvel Legends Absorbing Man Venom, representing the character in line with his earliest appearances in the comics. And again, a classic Venom, this time in the form of 2013's Marvel Select Venom. Of course, Marvel Select in a more larger 7-inch scale compared to Legends' 6-inch one. As such, the two side by side and the BAF just standing a shade under the Select conveys its size. And that's where we leave Eddie Brock, yet the story of Venom continues as he takes a new host in the form of Mac Gargan, here represented in an action figure from 2009 by Hasbro and released in a Spider-Man 6-inch line. Mac Gargan being better known as the Spider-Man villain Scorpion, explaining the removable stinger tail on the back of this action figure. Yes, I can, and here they are side by side, although I should point out that both of these represent the current Venom host Flash Thompson. The one on the left being a Marvel Legends Walgreens exclusive, popularised as Agent Venom, the symbiote having been forcefully removed from Matt Gargan, and now Flash Thompson was the host, becoming a Black Ops government agent no less. Later being placed in the Guardians of the Galaxy as a special envoy to maintain a connection between the two teams. Which brings us to the latest incarnation, brought about by a huge retcon, with Marvel's continuity previously representing the symbiotes as a wild alien race hell-bent on total domination. Nope, forget that now, they're a race of hippie communists called the Clintar, and Venom had only got cranky because he had travelled too far from the Clintar hive mind. But now cleansed, forming a perfect harmony between host and symbiote, Venom Space Knight, with the two achieving personal peace and happiness. Sounds like instead of the Guardians, he should now be hanging out with Pinkie Pie, Fluttershy, and the rest of the My Little Pony Friendship is Magic gang. Now, the smart Alec, in answering your question, I'd say I prefer classic Agent Venom over this new one, but both for my liking have reduced Venom to just being a suit that Flash can do super cool things with. While Agent Venom was an interesting experiment in doing something unique with Venom, the character's stint with Guardians of the Galaxy has to me made him infinitely less interesting. The appeal for me of Venom was that he brought a unique horror to the Marvel Universe, and that's all gone. But with sales of the Venom Space Knight comic being in the toilet, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a return to horrific form soon. Fingers crossed. While I think Space Venom is the least interesting iteration of Venom, it does capture the new design really quite well. While not immediately obvious, it has more than expected going on in the sculpt with some inset groove lines. Then the chest and back logo is sculpted raised in relief, whereas I expected that to be simply rendered as paint deco. On both shoulders he sports the Guardians logo. I like that it's grey, providing a bit of variety from the stark black and white. However, on mine, while crisply printed on one shoulder, it is a bit bungled on the other. Taking a closer look at the head sculpt, which I think is the most interesting part of the character design, as the rest adopts the obvious archetypal muscle-bound comic book body, yet the head is much more abstract and futurist in style, presenting us with interesting angles, drawing down into this extreme point of a chin. While deep set and hard to make out, the yellow of the eyes provide the only colour too. While we're on the subject of head, Pro Kid Reviewer asked about the Absorbing Man Venom's head. Here's the alternate one that came with the Absorbing Man Venom. Well, let's give it a whirl and see if it fits on. Looking at the peg hole, I've got a hunch, yep, the peg hole's just going to be that bit too small for the ball peg of the neck on this BAF. So if you're going to want to make this fit, you're going to have to do some modifications. Wouldn't it be grand if Hasbro made that neck ball peg exactly the same size on each of their action figures? But they don't. Then Josh asked about the Select Venom head. Well, here's the alternate head that came with the Select Venom. I can immediately say there's no way that's going to fit on there. But in terms of scale, as we saw with the BAF next to the Select, I'd say this head's a good scale for the BAF. Although the sculpt in its rendering on the Select is probably too high detailed, it jars a bit against the simpler sleekness of the BAF. Now looking at articulation, and the head rotates side to side and is able to look down quite far in spite of his long elongated chin, and well, he's not really able to look up very much at all. At the shoulder his arms rotate and then it hinges up to less than a right angle to his body. There's upper arm rotation followed by a single jointed elbow, and then at the wrists the hands do rotate and they also have a hinge moving the hand down and also up. However, the sculpt of this armoured plate on the top of the hand there does inhibit some of that hinge. He rotates at the waist and then he also has an ab crunch which moves quite plenty far forward and then moves, well, it doesn't really move far back. And then at the hips his legs move out to the side this much. They move this far forward, but then don't really move back. There's upper leg rotation, followed by a double jointed knee. Then at the ankles, his feet are hinged, moving backwards and forwards, and he has that crazy ankle rocker pivot that I love. And taking advantage of that ankle pivot, this is him stood at his widest stance possible, still with both feet flat on the floor. So all things considered, being called Space Knight, I wish it made more of forging an armoured look, yet that's a criticism of the character design and not its translation into plastic. To that end, it's a perfectly decent representation of the comic art from which it's based. Alas, not comic art or the story driving it that I'm the biggest fan of. It's like being served a dish of the world's best curry. No matter how good it is, I have to apologise and say sorry. I just don't like spicy food. Anyway, if you missed any of my reviews from this wave, you can click the video on the left for a one-stop shop playlist of them all. And stay tuned, as shortly Venom will appear on my channel again, this time in the form of Micro Mashers. Now answering some questions raised in previous videos. Interesting question, Daniel. I'll say that Miles Morales and Peter Parker will fly off the shelves initially, but both of those are 2 per case, so I think in the long run there'll be enough of those to go around. As for a peg warmer, I'd say Spider-Bitch, only because she's likely the most obscure character in the wave. Well, at this point we've seen leaked pictures of the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive Marvel Legends box set, which includes Sandman, and I suspect a redecoed version of that Sandman will be the next Spider-Man Wave's BAF. As for the BAF of the second X-Men wave, well, I'm crossing my fingers for an apocalypse. The character, not an actual apocalypse. Anyway, please give this video a big thumbs up, and I hope to see you all next time. Bye.